complex. And I was the same as you are today when I left university. Not like Matthew, when I left university, I thought nuclear energy is shit. Sorry to put it like this. We cannot approach this. However, I have to say that, through my career, I changed my mind, and I have to change my mind. Because you realize that, as I mentioned earlier, the world is different. You have people who don't want nuclear energy, but then they also do not want solar, and they also do not want other form of renewable energy. So somehow you have to find this balance in the world. And it's very good to be idealistic about things and push and promote your ideas and be very strong in what you believe in. At the same time, you will have to find the balance, and let's see. I'm looking forward to see how you will step into the world after you graduate from your different studies, and help us, challenge us, bring the world forward. But competitiveness, definitely, I think you will quickly realize it's important to remain competitive.
I think it shows how young our audience is, yet to be faced with the realities of the world. Just kidding, working life's great. All right. Also, I've heard the word old being used too many times. Let's not use the word old. We're all youth today. Youth at SIEW. All right. Let's move on to the very last set of questions that we have. Energy consumption, career opportunities in the energy sector. So, would you consider a career in the energy sector? Wow, 82.6% say yes. Good job, guys. The next question. Which sectors within energy would interest you most as a career? We have quite a few options here, but I think clean energy, I think the answers are very similar in terms of you guys really love our world. 55.7% say clean energy. And lastly, what will encourage you to choose a career in the energy sector? Career progression, very, very realistic. And then good starting pay, 27.5%. Right, I think this is the portion where everyone gets ready their resumes and their CVs. Maybe Mr. Mayafei, you want to go first this time?
Well, again, we see here we come back into this clean energy topic. And it's interesting to see people motivated to join this sector. Now, since we are in Singapore, I would like to highlight a bit on the environment that I see in Singapore. And I think you are very lucky here in Singapore to live in an environment where the education system works very well. You also have strong support from the different government agencies in moving things forward. In grooming new ideas, supporting new ideas. You have the initiative of Smart Nation here moving forward. You also have a blueprint for sustainable energy. And I would say that this is a very conducive and very nice environment you are living in to do something to change the world. It's not everywhere in the world that you live in a place where you have such an ecosystem around you supporting and encouraging you to change things and to promote those ideas. So, just maybe do a bit of benchmarking and comparison, where you stand in Singapore versus other areas, and realize that you are extremely lucky to have this, and definitely make use of this opportunity that you have to promote those ideas moving forward. Because I really think that Singapore is, in some sense, unique in the world. It's a small country, and that maybe helps, of course, in making this happen much easier than in other places that have more challenges because of distance or the size of the country. But it's really a good opportunity for you, and grasp it and do something with it, because not everyone has this chance.
I'm really happy to see the spike. More than 82% of you will join the energy industry. But it looks like companies like Shell needs to do a better job to attract you to the oil and gas industry, because only about 10% wants to join a company like ours. And so I think while I have the mic, I'm going to do some advertising.
Go ahead, go ahead.
You know, don't look at the oil and gas industry as the kind of companies that go look into the grounds and into the deep sea to explore hydrocarbon. We do a lot more than that. By the way, Shell is the largest producer of ethanol in the world. And there are some other aspects as well. It's not just about engineering. Engineering is one part of the solution. There is this other one. So we talked a lot about renewables. There are a lot of technology out there, and we know now that because of the tension of climate change, combination of policy subsidies, many of these renewable technologies are getting more and more viable. But there are still some issues, as Minister Iswaran was saying, around the intensity, the intermittency of renewable energy. And so companies like Shell, where in the past we have dabbled in solar energy, one of the things that we're thinking about, it's not so much about the technology to develop the alternative fuels, but it's the business model that will bring those alternative fuels to the market. It is how do we make it into a viable business proposition. So, you know, as you think about careers in oil and gas, or even I should stop selling now and not talk about careers in oil and gas, but this whole area of energy, it is a fantastic and very dynamic industry. And don't think about it as just the technology. A lot of it is about how do you bring that technology to market. And the big question with renewables now is not so much the technology, it's how do you turn it into a viable technology in the market. And not naming a country, but one of the things that we're working with a gas-producing country is the country has access to a lot of sun. It needs some money as well. And the way it gets money is to sell its crude products or gas. The more it consumes domestically, the less it can sell. So the solution that we work with this country is how do you harness solar energy. And at different parts of the day, when solar energy is more available, that is used. So the consumption of fuels in country becomes less, and that can actually be exported. I'm simplifying the entire story, but this just gives you the wide diversity that the energy industry offers. It is an industry that matters.
So I think it's good that many of you are considering an opportunity in the space. And this is, as both Laurent and Spichen have said, it's very diverse in terms of the opportunities. Yesterday, I was at this clean energy conference where, and by the way, you know, maybe we should change the thing and don't call it clean energy. That biases the result. Nobody wants to work for dirty energy, you know. So we should maybe just call it solar or whatever, and that's less loaded. But I think when I was at this conference yesterday, what was very interesting was, first, I think we all know Asia needs more energy for the economic growth. We also know that in Asia, actually the awareness that we need to have not just the traditional carbon-based, but the non-carbon-based sort of energy sources is important. So China and India have got very ambitious targets for the adoption of solar, for example. And they're very keen to promote this because they recognize that this is going to be an important part of the mix for them. And this creates opportunities for our businesses. And yesterday I met a company run by a group of young Singaporeans, and they're in the solar business. I won't mention names, but I can tell you they have put together solar systems to meet the needs of our government departments and also in the industry. And now they're looking at how this can be turned into a business model that can be taken regional. In other words, go outside Singapore and meet the needs around. And that's the interesting part of this, because it's not just the technology in the solar cells or how you put them all together as a solution for a company, but also how do you make a business out of it? So you need financial knowledge, You need bankers or financiers who understand the energy business, because they can then help the companies come up with financial solutions. In the case of this company, they were looking at how they can create solar bonds, if you like, or instruments which will allow them to finance their projects in a different way. On the other hand, you also need lawyers who understand the business, or at least the sector, so that you know what is the IP you need to protect, what are the structures you need for the contracts to make it viable, and so on. You need the technical people, the engineers, who know how to optimize the technology, who are working on it on an R&D level, also on an operational level. So there are many opportunities. It's not just in clean energy as it's put in the survey here. I do want to echo what Swee Chen says, that there are opportunities in the whole spectrum of the sector. So the good news is there are many opportunities, and each of you may be considering different pathways, and this is a sector that is wide enough, and the need in Asia is large enough that there will be opportunities for quite some time to come. So think about it when you make your choices in terms of causes, in terms of jobs, because I think this will be a sector where the future is fairly full of potential.
Thank you very much. Hashtag join the energy industry. All right, I think we have time for maybe one question. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, we'll take a few questions here. All right, does anybody have questions? We have mics around. Any burning candle questions?
Somebody
Sorry?
on this side.
Oh, sorry, blocked.
Understand that Singapore, we
Sorry,
are...
you want to introduce your name and your school? Okay, I know we know
I
who you are,
thought
but
I introduce. As in, I'm Ying Hao, and from NUS. So I understand that the oil market is not doing very well now. The oil prices is going all the way down, and as a personal opinion, I believe that this oil will come back up in a very sharp trend, and that Singapore economy, we are very reliant on oil. So are we ready? What do we have in place to cushion this impact? Yeah.
I'm sure Swee Chen is very happy to hear you say oil will come back up.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about it first?
Okay, let me, I'll leave Minister Iswaran to answer the tough question about the Singapore economy, but let me give you a general perspective. One point I like to make is for the oil industry, we need to take the long view. So you said it will come back up. And in the 80s, crude was $10 a barrel. 2003, it was $24 a barrel, and it was considered high. OPEC was called to see how they can reduce oil price at that time. Then it went up to a high of 127, and now, of course, we know where it is. So the industry needs to always take a very long view. We continue to invest in exploring new sources of energy. This year, Shell will invest $28 billion in CAPEX to explore new energy sources. So we can't afford to, we've learned from the 80s when crude was $10 a barrel, we made some decisions that satisfies the short term, hurts us in the long term. And one of those decisions was we divested a large amount of what I would call brains, the geophysicists, the reservoir engineers, a lot of that technical thinking, we divested a large amount of that. And that was a lesson for us. And so, I just want to make the point, oil industry, we have to take a long view. Huh?
So I think the main thing I would say is when energy prices are down, there are some winners and there are losers as well. And this is the way the nature of the business is. So the winners, really those who are consuming energy, whether they are countries or sectors which use a lot of electricity or a lot of energy, now they have an environment where the cost is lower. So that is advantageous for them. But the disadvantage or the thing they should guard against is really thinking that this is going to be the way for the next 10, 15 years. Because as you have said and Swee Chen says, these things go in cycles. And at some point, it will come back up. So if you build your business thinking, I will always have cheap oil, cheap gas, cheap electricity, then one day when the things are not so cheap, you have a problem. So you've got to look at it from that angle. But there are also sectors and companies or parts of the economy which will take a hit. So one example is in Singapore, we have a very well-developed marine and offshore sector. And many of these companies, they support upstream oil work and deep sea work in terms of sourcing for oil and gas and so on. So when oil prices are down, these sorts of activities become less competitive, because for you to go and do, explore for oil and get oil from the deep sea, you got to have oil prices that are higher than what they are today, put it that way. And the companies must believe that they will have that opportunity to recover their investment. So when oil prices are that low, this will become a problem, and therefore all the industries that support this also take a hit. But that doesn't mean that they cannot overcome it, because the strong businesses, what they will do, and many of them are doing that, first they invest in technology and R&D in order to see how can I do what I'm doing better at a lower cost if possible, so that I'm even more competitive. So if I can be competitive when oil prices are down, when oil prices go up, I'm even more competitive, if you like. So that's one of the important things we need to do. So you may have spare capacity in your businesses, but how do you use that to do research, development, and really build up the capability of your business and income? So this is one of the things they're doing. Another sector that's sort of having a bit of a challenge is the whole area of, I won't say clean, I would say alternative energy. So whether you're solar, whether you are wind and so on, the value proposition, if oil prices are very high, then solar and wind or whatever it is can be more competitive, right? Because you have a much higher bar to compete against. But when traditional sources come down, then now my solar source or my wind source must be competitive against that lower threshold. And that's where the challenge is. But again, this is also an opportunity. So we're already seeing many of our companies here who are offering, say, solar solutions. They seem to be able to offer very competitive prices compared to our electricity grid and so on, grid prices. And what they're all doing and what the government is supporting is really investment in R&D and so on. So you can continue to improve the efficiency of these systems and make them even more competitive. Because the clear point is this is a no regrets thing, as some of my colleagues would say. In other words, you invest in R&D, you invest in efficiency and enhancing the effectiveness of the technology, and that will benefit us whether you have high oil price or low oil price. And it will also serve the region, the needs in the region very well. So there's opportunity there. So that's our strategy really. You have prices that are, they're going to go up and down. This is the reality of life. What we need to do is have strategies that can be robust across that. So I can survive 1-2 cycles and still carry on and do a good business and keep the economy going and competitive. Yep.
Thank you, Minister. I think we have time for one last question, actually. Do we have one last question? Oh, I see you. Yes?
Hi, good morning. My name is Glenn from Singapore Polytechnic, studying clean energy engineering. So I want to pose a question that is regarding to our carbon emissions. Basically, one of our biggest carbon sink right here will be using of air conditioners, because it causes refrigerants to spread carbon around our atmosphere. So is there any way that we can actually, because like offices, buildings, shopping malls, all these, we are built in an enclosed area where there isn't much airflow. So we want quality airflow. That's why one of the reasons we do that is to use air conditioners. But is there any ways where we can maybe use fans to actually provide the same amount of ventilation, same amount of coolness that we want, but we can actually reduce so much of carbon emissions? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Because there's a bunch of issues there relating to government and regulations and so on. So first of all, you must realize that you're talking about this in an environment which is very hazy outside. Everybody is really valuing the, if you have a fan blowing the haze into your house, it's not a fun experience. So I think there is in Singapore's context, and really in any tropical environment, I think some level of temperature control for your environment is quite essential. I mean, that goes to the very essence of, what is a comfortable environment for us to live, for us to work, and it's about a quality of life. So I think if you put the idea that we shouldn't have any air conditioning, I don't think that will fly. But I think your point is more, how do we make it a more efficient system? And that's absolutely spot on. So you got to look at it in different ways. It's about building designs. So buildings have got a range of, we've got all these green mark and all the other elements that go to our building designs to see how efficient they are in terms of their energy consumption. You also need to look at the aircon technology itself, right? In terms of, you know, there are a range of options, and now you've got all these ticks. And, you know, I would urge all of you, if you are in a position to influence the choice of what type of air conditioner, go for the one with more ticks. They tell me it's better from an energy footprint point of view. The last thing I would say is also it's about personal behavior. Because you can have the most efficient system, but if I put the setting and the temperature at 16, and then I wear my jacket and all that to feel good, you know, it's obviously very wasteful. I'm reminded, you know, many years back, the ambassador of Finland to Singapore, he told me the country in which he felt the coldest was Singapore. And he said that because the air conditioning was so high, and he was in one of these commercial offices, he says he had to wear jackets and so on in order to stay reasonably warm. So that tells us, I mean, we're not really that bad at the moment, I mean, a lot better. But the point I'm making is, we need to ensure that, you know, I think the practical answer would be we need some level of temperature control to make sure our environment is something that assures us of a quality of life and comfort to be productive. But how we achieve that, there are many ways to be efficient. And certainly, you know, using fans in order to ensure greater circulation, that helps a lot. Because there are certain, and in design of buildings, now there are a lot of in silico modeling, I mean computer modeling, where what they do is they look at how buildings and building complexes can be designed to facilitate better airflow. So those of you who are in that sort of discipline or interested in these areas, whether it's architecture or building design and so on, again, these are things where you can make a big difference and contribute. Because it all goes to the aspect of energy efficiency. And what we saw about ITE College Central, for example, is a case in point. I don't know if others have a...
Yeah, just want to pick up on this room control example that I have seen outside during the coffee break. And that's a good example of what you can do to save energy, particularly regarding air conditioning. I happen to have complained to an hotel in Singapore because by default when you leave the room, and that's really a point with the demonstration that you have outside, by default when you leave the room, the system goes to the coolest temperature setting that it can, so that when you come back into the room, it's freezing cold. And I complained to the hotel management, who said they cannot fix it, and so I will not name the hotel, but you can come to me later, maybe you can go and talk to them. It's a good potential for you to apply these technologies. Then just to highlight as well on the efficiency on cooling. Again, there it depends on the feeling on each and every one of you. Some guys want it hot, some other people want it cool, and then you have to find a way. And trust me, coming from an open space office, one of the biggest debate, especially in an office where you have a mix of guys from Europe and guys from Asia with different opinions on how the settings should be, you can debate for hours on either 20 or 25 or 16 degree on the settings. But here in Singapore, you have this great solution as well with Singapore district cooling. You're using an approach to, you know, try to minimize the impact by leveraging on the size of a system. Rather than have maybe a lot of individual systems that are less efficient, you try to have a bigger system which is more efficient and easier to control. And I think those are good ideas moving forward as well. And again, here, Singapore shows that people are thinking outside the box in regards to these type of solutions, and this is good.
Thank you very much. I think actually our time's up for the dialogue. We'd like to round of applause for our three guests. Thank you so much. I would actually like to invite our three guests to take a group photo in front of the stage, if you would, please.
Thank you very much. Now may I invite Ms. Goh and Mr. Mayafei back to your seats while Minister Iswaran remains on stage for the Energy Industry Scholarships Award presentation ceremony. Launched in January 2014, the Energy Industry Scholarship is a scholarship dedicated to the power sector. It is available to students pursuing relevant engineering courses at the local Institute of Technical Education, polytechnics, and universities. It aims to develop and nurture talent for the power sector and is co-funded by the government and the power sector companies. The first scholarship we would like to present is the Polytechnic Midterm Scholarship Award by Sinoco Energy, and this scholarship goes to Lim Jun Kiet. May I invite the family members of Jun Kiet to join us on stage for a group photo, please? Family members of Jun. May I invite the family members of Jian.
It's a bit impromptu, but anyway, I just want to say, I just want to reiterate what I said at the start. This forum, this idea of having this dialogue with the youth of Singapore on energy matters is something that started a few years back. And I want to congratulate my colleagues from the Energy Market Authority and who put this together. And all of you, every year I come and I get very inspired by the presentations, the ideas, and also the questions that you pose, because it tells me that we are doing things right in our institutions of higher learning, ITE, Poly, University, and also in our schools, because you're thinking about the issues. And I think this is a space which you should watch closely, because what we do here has a very important impact on what our economy is going to look like, what our living environment is going to look like, and also the kind of opportunities that you will have in the future as you look to careers which you find fulfilling and rewarding. So watch this space, talk to the people from the industry who are here. Many of them have got deep experience and they can give you valuable advice that can shape some of the choices you make in terms of courses and career pathways. All the best. Good luck. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. We have now come to the end of the dialogue session. We would like to thank Minister, Ms. Goh, and Mr. Mayafei, as well as our student presenters for sharing your views with us and for gracing our event this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we hope you have taken back many interesting insights from this session at SIEW 2015. We've lined up a series of exciting exhibits outside, so feel free to take a look. We also have refreshments prepared for you at the main foyer. Please enjoy yourselves and don't forget to visit the exhibits. We look forward to seeing you at SIEW next year. Thank you.